I wanted to mention Kyle Shanahan and his aggressiveness because he has been going for it on fourth down more. He has been calling all of the different passes for Purdy that I feel like he had in the playbook that we knew as fans that were probably there that he was not attempting with Jimmy. But something that did confuse me was he had time before going to the half to try to score, and instead he ran out the clock and went into the locker room. And then the halftime speaker person was like, "Oh yeah, we just talked to Kyle Shanahan, and he said he wants to be even more aggressive, and he actually thinks that they should be up by more, and he wants to put his foot on the gas and all that." And when I was listening, I was like, "This is an excellent mindset for Kyle Shanahan to have," because as a fan, I feel like I've always wanted him to be more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was kind of confusing because I'm like, "You just had the opportunity to do that, and you did not take it." So did you notice it going into the half that they had like 2 minutes left and they ended up wasting like 45? Do you think that's weird? And then aside from that, have you noticed a difference in Kyle Shanahan's aggressiveness?
In terms of maybe not necessarily fourth down and stuff like that, but for sure with like attacking more downfield, being more aggressive as a passer, they don't feel necessarily like a run first offense anymore, which I wonder why. You got a difference in quarterback. I think that became evident in when Brock Purdy took over last year. After the first few games, it's like, hey, this guy actually is not afraid to sling it deep. He sees it and will do it. Because I've always said, even if you're not connecting, you're still giving the defense something to think about. That's it. It's like with fighting, when boxing or UFC, MMA, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like, hey, why do we throw the jab? Because you're making them think about it. Why we do the leg kicks, stuff like that, those takedowns. Like, you have to account for all of these things. Even though you don't connect, even though you're not necessarily like being so, disruptive with it, it still gets you something. But now you have a guy who's connecting with these players in terms of just throwing it deep, finding these guys, and then you have he has the ability to be mobile too. That it just pretty much opens everything. So again, I'm gonna keep hounding this word. He optimizes the offense. Everything is there. Everyone is there to make a play. So now George Kittle can be good. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Chris McCaffrey doesn't necessarily have to face a loaded line of scrimmage constantly, although he wasn't too great on the ground yesterday, 2.7 yards per carry, but it's not like he was getting attacked behind the line of scrimmage too much. So everything becomes just wide open because you have a guy who knows how to process things, who knows how to sling it, and it can fit in tight windows here and there sometimes. It's just – so I think personally he's happy, but no, actually I don't even think personally happy. I think right now he's just going with it. I think right now he just wants to keep dominating, keep improving, and seeing what his team can get better at. The same way that I'm like trying to nitpick, okay, what's wrong with them to see what I think that's what Shanahan's trying to do, because there's no point in you looking at what you're great at or good at. It's the point of the coach is to see where can you get better at. So I think especially when you're the 49ers, you have Super Bowl aspirations, you continually keep exiting in devastating fashion, that right now it's not necessarily cruise control and you're on autopilot, because of course they're still actively there. But I think at this point it's just what can we do to keep being better. Like, I'm not ready until we get later half, until we start winning playoff games, until we get to, I think that they're locked in. They're a team on a mission. Until they get there, then everyone's going to get it. Everyone's going to get it. And it's no wonder why they're getting over 30 points. It's like, no, we're just going to keep scoring. We're going to keep it because we need to keep this momentum going. So that's why back to that first question, is the best team in the league. Can they sustain this? I think they could, because when you're a team or a player on a mission, you don't let up the gas and you know what's at stake.
I definitely agree, especially when you're talking about Kyle Shanahan. I remember on a podcast he talked about his mindset, and he said he has it in all aspects of his life. He used it in an example that him and his wife were house shopping, and then when he was going and looking at all these different houses, he would just start pointing out all the things that were wrong with him. Mm-hmm. And I guess at the end of the day, his wife was like almost in tears because she was like, "I love this house," and he was like, "Oh, I love it too. Like, why did you get the vibe that I didn't?" And she was like, "All you did was point out what's wrong with it." And he was like, "That's just how my brain works." So you're right. And I think that that's a funny thing for maybe fans to remember when they're listening to critics of the team and stuff, is the team is always self-scouting. They're never like, when they look back at that Cowboys game, they definitely probably celebrated last night, but when they go in today, Kyle Shanahan's going to be like, even going into that second half, I was just talking about the sideline reporter. Yep. He was like, "I think we should be up by more." Like, his mindset, and I think right now the team in unison, their mindset is they're not going to be happy until, one, they make it to the Super Bowl, and two, they win it. Because I think they've, with all these veterans on the team, and with John Lynch going and getting Javon Hargrave, with Kyle Shanahan kind of choosing a quarterback, I feel like the team feels like this is our year, and we keep making it here. We keep making it to the hump, and everyone's saying we can't get past here. So I feel like they might kind of just be on like cruise control, like let's just knock these out. Let's get that first place and
Mhm.
let's get to the playoffs because that's when it actually counts. We were kind of saying with the Cowboys, it's almost the opposite. Like, enjoy this because when you get to the playoffs, it's going to be scary. I feel like the 49ers as a team kind of have the almost the opposite mindset where they're like, we just need to knock these out. And when the games actually count, like how we were like, oh, the Cowboys game is going to really count. I feel like in their head, they were like, no,
It's
the
just
games are
another
going to count
game.
when we make it to the playoffs and when we win the Super Bowl, hopefully. But I do think that even if Kyle Shanahan is still self scouting and being critical, I do notice him feeling lighter and happier in press conferences and when he's talking about not just his quarterback, but specifically his quarterback, the way that he talks about them working together and everything. I do think that that is a big difference from how he's spoken about other quarterbacks. He seems, I keep using the word smitten. Like he just like he's literally smiling in press conferences more.
It's because
So
his team's
and I
winning.
don't
His team's
yeah, his
winning.
team
That's why it's literally indicative. From the moment I started covering his team in 2019, when I was actually on hand, I was like, dude, Kyle's hella transparent. And then when they start losing, if you go back to 2020, even in 2021, when they were like on that
that's when he
bad
gets
streak,
more.
it's like this guy's a smartass. Like honestly, like my God, he hates getting anything critical eye, like anything. This guy is just like like dude, like my shit don't stink kind of guy or something like that. Like you guys cannot question me, don't mess with me, nothing like that. And it's like, no, if you mess up, we have to ask. These guys have to ask. And the fans deserve to know. Like, what was your process? What's up? Why'd you think that? So I think when you, it's winning. I guarantee if they went on like a 5-game losing streak, he's gonna be so like hurling. Like, I mean, even with the Trey Lance trade, I mean, I know he was pretty much at the press conference, he was pretty good, but like towards the end, he started getting a little snarky. But overall,
Snippy.
like when things are going good, you can ask the players and coaches everything. That's why you can get things to be more tolerated if you had like, say a toxic player or something. Like, not the 49ers have that, but like I would draw a comparison like with Jalen Carter, how he was a red flag. It's like you can't be a losing team and handle them, but the Eagles can. So that's
Yeah.
why it's like winning cures all. So even if there were issues, then it's fine. But when there's losing, some people start to, okay, who's really that's where the true character kicks in. And that's one thing about this team is the cores remain the same. And even with those not losing season, but losing stretches or that one losing
Yeah.
season, they're still headstrong and fine. They know what's there and it's not deeper than that. And they just know to put the pedal to the metal. And the same thing, like you said, it's cruise control. Like we're just here to get them. Let's just keep whooping ass every Sunday. And then by the time we get there, maybe we're at the Super Bowl in the blink of an eye.
I like that perspective of a lot of it might just be that they're winning. Like I've been like, oh, like he seems like a totally different person. And it's like,
I don't think
well,
it's changed. I think just because
is
my
the
experiences I've
honeymoon.
seen him, because
Let's see if
I've seen
there's
Kyle like be nice and stuff like that. So that means like, yeah, he's winning. Because if you pull some clips when they're losing or something like that, then he's different. So I mean, and
yeah.
it's not just him. It's a lot of coaches, a lot of players, and it makes sense. I mean, look, you got to think about it from their perspective in a way. It's like, look, I'm a multi-million-dollar player or coach. I just lost this game. It's devastating, whatever. Meanwhile, I got like some 6-year-old dude who's trying to tell me what he knows best or something like that. Or I have Grant Cohn or something like that. So I mean, that's why they get a little pissed off by Grant, because they actually push back. And it's like, hey, man, the reality is that's their job. And that's your job to answer and take it on the chin. I mean, you're only up there for 10 minutes. You act like it's the worst thing that's happened. You just lost the
Yeah.
game. You're over here getting concerned with, how he should view it, a peasant's like point of opinion. Not saying he's a peasant, but if I was him, it's like, dude, you guys are all just peasants to me. I'm worried about this. But
Yeah. Yeah. I I totally agree. I remember thinking, I wonder if Kyle Shanahan feels like gratified now that Jimmy is at the Raiders and we're kind of seeing how Jimmy's doing and
if he
how
took a
and
step away, probably he would. Yeah.
like yeah, he might not even really be paying attention right now, but I feel I feel like Kyle has some pettiness to him. I feel
Oh,
like,
God, he does.
in bed at night he might be like, yeah, yeah, you suck and I'm doing great. Um but I also do like what you said though. This team is solid and in their belief, and even if I trust at least that even if they were to go through a low slump, I think that they would stick together because we've seen them through those previous slow starts. They've always show. I mean, when people would put Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat or even when they were questioning Jimmy or whatever, the team is really good about rallying behind each other. And I feel like they are doing that even more now that they're winning. They definitely don't want to, I mean, they want to take questions, but they don't want to take